Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's discussion powered by the Agricultural Development Agency. My name is Duncan Masiwa, Assistant Editor for the agricultural publication Food from Mzansi. Of course, welcome to those of you in the audience, but also to our viewers online on Facebook as well as YouTube. We have a very interesting discussion today. We're asking a question, can farming power the mining communities? We'll obviously hear from our experts today to help us unpack this even further. If that is a conversation that you want to be a part of, you're more than welcome to pose your questions online in the chat box, and we'll definitely get to those questions a bit later. Also, for those of you who are in the audience, you're also welcome to pose questions as the session unfolds. Without any further ado, I'll ask my panelists to join me on stage. First up, we have Leona Archary, who's the CEO of AGDA. Your hands and mine for Leona Archary. Joining Leona on stage is Ntate David Mthombeni, who's a renowned farmer, but he's also part of the board members at AGDA. Ntate David, you can join us on stage. Let's give him a round of applause. Joining them on stage is Professor Mike Teke, who is the CEO of Seriti Resources Holdings. Let's give Mike a round of applause. Then I'm going to ask my colleagues to quickly bring another chair there at the back, one of the couches, to bring it on stage. Joining us on stage is Ntate Lehlohonolo Chabedi, who is the Managing Director at Bakhatla Bakhafela. Your hands in mine for Ntate Lehlohonolo. Fantastic. This is a very interesting conversation. Many would not understand how the two worlds come together, Leona, but we're talking mining and agriculture. Let's maybe kick off the conversation right there, Leona. Why is it important, rather, to connect agriculture with the mining industry? 1, 2.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, Duncan, I think that because the two worlds exist in the same space, right? Many of our rural areas have long since been areas where mining has been operating. But if one looks at what is the alternative long-term kind of economies that also have to thrive in these communities, agriculture actually begins to be the answer. Not just from a food security perspective, but also from a job creation and enterprise perspective. It really bears a lot of opportunity for those living in areas surrounding the mining areas. So I honestly believe there has to be a way for us to ensure that these two large parts that drive our economy begin to coexist and support one another.
Which is, of course, then important to also talk about some of these success stories that we've already seen. Ntate David, as a farmer, how have you worked with mining communities?
Thanks, Duncan, and thanks to audience. It is true, both industries cannot compete. Actually, they can work together for the sake of the economy of the country. And it is doable. I've did it, and I'm still doing it. To an extent that within the area where we are operating, we are surrounded by gold and coal. And the support that is there, it's massive. Yes, indeed, there are challenges, but the two can operate together. And we need to pull our heads together from the mining industry and from the agricultural perspective. We need to come together and synchronize for the sake of operation. Thank you.
Mike, it's clear that Tata David says it's very much possible. I want to hear from you, why should mining companies invest in agricultural projects?
You know, if you can't mine it, you grow it, right? They say. So when we operate mines, historically, people have applied, or investors or entrepreneurs or business people have applied for mining rights or prospecting rights. And often they have to prospect not in open spaces. They have to prospect either next to a farmer, an existing farmer, a commercial farmer, or an individual farmer. And if it's an open space, then they may find themselves being neighbors with a particular farmer. So it is imperative that as a mining company or as a mining business, you have to develop a relationship. You have to collaborate with the farmer. And beyond the farmer, there is a community. You find that there's a community that depends on the livelihood. Their livelihood is solely dependent on that farm. You cannot therefore find yourself saying, for the sake of the mine, let me displace the farmer. How do you collaborate and work with the farmer side by side to grow the economy, to progress the future of humanity? And if we can achieve those two, if we can achieve the collaboration between the two industries, progress will be huge.
Yeah. Ndate Chabedi, Mike talks about collaboration, that the two can exist or coexist, mining, agriculture and mining communities. How is your community using agriculture to build wealth beyond mining?
Thank you. Thank you, Duncan. Good afternoon, everyone. Duncan, this relationship is normally very short-lived because mines have a lifetime. They will come in after so many years, they will go out, and we always have to think about life after mining. So the relationship we have in the Bakatla area, it's a very interesting one because we have had engagements with mines to say, these are the 3-4 key pillars of our master plan, and agriculture is one of them. Your contribution is going to leave a legacy beyond our time. And I can talk about quite a number of programs that we have started that we still have a long way to go, by the way, but at least we have started. There are programs that involve the communities. I mean, we have over 140 families that have been trained in about 15 villages, give or take, and those, they were given knowledge. The idea was not just to hand over a vegetable and we take pictures, but it was to ensure that the knowledge that they have will pass from generation to generation. Now that's sustainability. The other aspect that I can talk about is one of the things that we try to sell to the mines is that you want traffic not to go to the mines. And it is therefore important that you work with the existing traditional administrations so that we give skills to the community, we give economic opportunities, and we build programs that are long-lasting. So that's the life after mining.
Yeah, life after mining. Leona, AGDA, of course, plays a very important role in the agricultural space when it comes to collaboration and partnerships and bringing these different worlds together. What role is AGDA playing in building partnerships between farmers and mining companies?
Thanks, Duncan. I think since we started AGDA, have had the opportunity to be able to bring different sectors together. And we don't look at the different sectors in isolation of one another, but rather look at the points of synergy, the points that we can collaborate on. So from day one, it's quite interesting that we've always had several of the big mining entities who have partnered with AGDA and even to some extent become members of AGDA as well. So that then helps us to work with them in developing some new strategies for the mining areas, and we're doing a lot of that work out in Limpopo with De Beers and Venetia. We're working with Anglo and Kumba in the Northern Cape. But what it helps us to do is not look at individual small projects that mines may have been doing in the past, but really looking at long-term strategy for agriculture, looking at value chains and commodity development that is suitable for those areas. So instead of looking at micro enterprises and spending money on small poultry opportunities or a small vegetable tunnel opportunity, we would rather want to see what is possible in the entire area. And like Mike is saying, how can the two coexist, right? So mining is continuing. On the other side, we're building commercial agriculture as well at different levels, from household to micro, but moving up into the commercialization. And then also moving into the agro-processing and building alternate value chains in those areas. So that's really working well, where we actually begin to see not just the host communities, but broader, the young people within those areas finding new opportunities also within agriculture.
Yeah. Leona, building partnerships is one thing, but building partnerships that I can trust is another. How does AGDA see your role in building relationships that these different entities can actually trust each other?
Well, over the past few years, we have been successfully having a number of dialogues, setting up a number of network sessions, and allowing people to engage and put their story on the table as well. So to be able to say, what is the expectation from a mining sector? What is the expectation from an agricultural sector? What is the expectations from community sector as well? And when we bring our partners together in terms of collaborating, then we understand what is the model we want to drive together. So the model that we're driving in Bloberg is a typical example where we have, over the last 2 years, been able to bring together not just the mining sector, but key industry players in agriculture, from financing to production to input supply. And all of them now are finding opportunity and a way to work in building the value chains in those areas that we're working in. So I think it's about building that area where you can begin to trust one another and finding the ability to work with each other.
Yeah. Let's talk about the opportunities for a moment. Ntade David, there's a couple of young faces in the crowd, farmers, future farmers. What opportunities do you see, do you see for young people near farming areas, or mining areas rather?
Thanks, Duncan. Opportunities are galore. The only challenge that we've got is an approach, one. Secondly, our villages and our communities, they are still working in silos. Up until our people, they understand the value of belonging to an organized agriculture, you won't win the battle. You can't go solo. You need to move with the movers and the right the movers to approach the stakeholder and to build the stakeholder relations. Opportunities are quite existing. Let me talk in practically. In our area, as we speak, we have trained almost 700 local communities within the agricultural space through one of the institutions in Delmas, Obuhle Training Academy. And as we stand sitting here, we've got commercial farmers from that program.
That's fantastic.
Through one of the private sector in mining and petrochemical industry. And going further, we are unpacking some of the other mines, and very soon we will be knocking at Seriti next to me in one of the big projects, 50 kilometers away from our area. And we will engage to see how can we collaborate and what are programs that we can bring together that can be a game changer to the local communities. And within that, we need to explore the avenues for market, because they cannot just farm for stomach. At an end, these people, they need to grow and access the commercial sector.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mike, Ntade David says they're ready to knock on your door, if not already, if they haven't done it already. How is Seriti Resources already contributing to the local food systems of rural farming?
So I'm going to identify 4 areas that we've worked on as a company, as Seriti, and working with farmers, collaborating with them. Let's start with land. The first important thing, when you rehabilitate most of the land, if you've mined open cast, most of the farmers who work with you are proactive to lease that land back from you. And they lease that land for either their livestock or something else that is commercial farming. And that ensures food security for the country. The second one is when you mine, there's a lot of water you deal with. We deal with a lot of water, we mine with water, we use water. And right now we're building water treatment plants. Those water treatment plants are the water treatment plants that are going to help us clean the water and process the water to a usable level. And we would love the farming community to access the water because that water is important for farming, as you know. The third one is infrastructure. You know, there's an interesting thing there's an interesting project we're working on. A lot of people were not aware that we're building wind turbines in the Bethel, Morganzone, MLO area. We're building 130 wind turbines, 900 megawatts. The collaboration between us and the farmer is that we will put the wind turbines. You will still plant. You still have your maize planted around. But the benefit for you from an infrastructure point of view, we're building roads, and we'll be working with you and you'll be accessing those roads. Number 4, security. Farmers face challenges of security, of crime. We face the same situation. What do? We can collaborate and share security infrastructure. The whole power of aggregating those resources, rather than fighting each other for those resources, it's better for us to collaborate. If I have water, why don't I share with the farmers? And it is fair to say that when we are approached as Seriti to do anything that has to do with food security, job creation, and advancement of humanity, we will be there. We will participate. Sure.
I'm wondering then, Mike, what long-term benefits do you see then for mining towns that support farming?
The long-term benefits, you know, you don't want to mine and leave a ghost town. You don't want to mine and find yourself having to leave because mining, the resource you mine comes to an end. It's either 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever time it is. You don't want when the time comes that the community is suddenly stranded, no jobs, and the mine is gone. Farming will continue. We continue to eat. We continue to grow. We continue to build economic development and economic activity. And the communities with which we work with and the entrepreneurs that we see in the area are the ones who are going to take over one day when the mine is not there.
Ndate Jawedi, just going back to your community, what lessons can other traditional authorities or communities learn from your approach specifically?
I think there are two things that I just want to talk to. Leona talked to meaningful interventions in communities, and I do want to say that we have learned that it's incremental over a period of time. We started with the vegetable gardens that I was talking about. We are now working with AGDA towards commercialization and really building up significant hubs of vegetable production in the area so we can service, places like Sun City and other places. So we have the market. It's a question now of really moving from small incrementally over a period of time. So that is happening, I think, in that aspect. What are other communities around us learning of this initiative? Incidentally, our Khosi is the vice chair of Contralesa, vice president of Contralesa. And so every single year around September, we have a host of people coming literally from across the country to begin to see the kind of things that we have done with the mines. We have one of the best platinum beneficiation project that we started by training students over a period of time, and during COVID, it became a manufacturing entity right in our backyard. So the platinum that comes underground, it is going straight into beneficiation. So those are the things that communities are beginning slowly to come and they learn that around us. And we don't say that with a sense of arrogance, but humility, because there are certain things we also learn from other communities.
Yeah. How do you balance land use between mining, farming, and community development?
if anybody has a solution to that, it's a challenge. But I did talk a little bit around the master plan documentation that we did. It was a really detailed research documentation that we invested a lot of money into it. But it helped us to map out what we call special development for our area. We are able to say these are the areas that are demarcated for mining, these are areas that are demarcated for agriculture, we have manufacturing, old factories that are in existence, and so in collaboration with the hotels, because the fourth pillar of our strategy is tourism. So we integrate all these elements and we try to target different areas and target the local communities to ensure they are driving those key economic benefits.
Yeah. Leona, I want to, before we give the audience a chance to also pose questions, I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to just grab a mic from the stage so that we can get questions from the floor. Also, for those of you who are tuned in online, Leona, success stories. Are there any success stories where this connection has worked well in South Africa?
Definitely. I think, like I indicated, in the area we're working in with Venetia in Bloberg, when we got there 3 years ago, there were pockets of agricultural development happening in the area. Since then, working with all of the different partners and catalyzed by the mine itself, we have moved into developing an additional 220 hectares of new land for potatoes with the farmers that are there, bringing in more than 470 new vegetable farmers into production. And the plan is to get to 500 hectares under production within the next 2 years. But what has happened is the mine catalyzed the opportunity by investing in what is called an agri-services hub. So they decided not to support individual farmers, but support a broader strategy that drives development and is moving it up to 50 commercial farmers in the area. So if you start with a longer term plan, with a bigger plan, instead of only one kind of person at a time, we believe you're going to be able to get success. So that is something that's a model that we are trying to develop with them that we want to then replicate elsewhere in the country. And before I conclude, I just wanted to say, the point that Mike raised around the infrastructure that comes when mines come into an area is very important. Because often when you want to go into a greenfields development for agriculture, the greatest cost you're going to face is bringing in the road network, bringing in the energy, etc., that is required. And if mines are in there already, and a lot of that is brought to the table, even the issue of water, we can go into large-scale irrigated land with the water that is there. And we just need to think and plan together so that we're able to implement that together going into the future.
Let's get some questions from the floor. We've got a gentleman there at the back, another one over here, and then a question in front as well. Your name and briefly your question, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity, Duncan. My name is Apiwe Dinga. For smaller communities, it's a very good initiative to combine mining with agriculture. However, my problem comes in with when it gets to a commercial scale, because we have a few projects here in Welkom. There are a few projects in Newcastle where they're mining commercial agricultural land, and we all know that arable land is rapidly declining in South Africa. So after mining those lands, it is basically impossible to replant crops on those fields, because once you turn over the topsoil and bury it deep down, you can't plant anything anymore there, and it won't grow. And another thing is with gold mines, it's easy to contaminate the fields around the mine with gold pollutants. And once you plant crops like maize, they absorb that gold, and it becomes unedible or inedible for human consumption or animal consumption. So my question is, what are the remediation strategies that are in place to rehabilitate those lands that have been mined up, especially commercially?
Fantastic. Ndati David, I'm not sure if you want to take that one, or Leona.
Yeah,
Or Mike.
that must go to Mike about rehabilitation.
So I think your points are valid. Number one, for a small, and you're right, small communities or big communities, they benefit out of the relationship.
Mike, let's just get the mic closer to your mouth.
Okay. The relationship between mining and agriculture benefits those small communities. But let's talk about commercial farming. when we talk about rehabilitation, number one, if you are mining open cast, your rehabilitation must be concurrent rehabilitation. In other words, you cannot mine and then 20 years later you come back and say, can I rehabilitate? That is why the technology that is being used, or people who are better at rehabilitation are starting to say, as you mine, you rehabilitate. As you mine, rehabilitate, so that you can address the issue of soil quality, which is what you're talking about. And to involve people who are who understand the technology behind making soil fertile for whatever crop that you want to plant. That's number one. The second one you're talking about, I've touched on the issue of water. A lot of people disregard the fact that we share the water. It's a resource that we share, and it's scarce. And in its scarcity, when, like right now in my case, Seriti is going to end up processing more than 20 megaliters per day of water with the water treatment plants we build. But another miner could turn around and say, it's not my responsibility to build a water treatment plant, and I'm not going to share the water with you. So we're taking a different approach to say those two things must be addressed now and here. To say for you as a farmer who comes in, the water is right, and the crop that you want to plant, at least the science behind it. I'll give you an example. There's an area in Mpumalanga where we're planting spekboom. We're planting that simply because we know from a carbon point of view, it helps you. But then the question you ask, we went to the University of Pretoria and we said they must help us to understand as to whether can the soil the ground that's been rehabilitated be fertile enough to allow the growth of that plant. Exactly, how long does it take? Is it going to be a failure? Are you putting money and going just to lose that money? So it's the science behind it. It's the timing of the rehabilitation and the commitment to do the right thing because it's expensive. And thirdly, a resource called water, which is food security and our future, we must make sure that we share it. So I understand the point you're making. It's the commitment of both parties. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Apiwe. We've got another question there at the back.
Hi there. Sorry, my name is Francois van Wyk. I'm from Ecotanks. I just wrote down my question. It says, obviously, mines can invest, as you mentioned, about water. And we said mines can invest in water purification infrastructure that can also benefit nearby agricultural zones. Is there joint water management bodies established to ensure the equitable and sustainable use for these waters that is used in mines? As I've been in the mining industry, working with the DMRE and those things, is there sustainable joint ventures from both parties where they reuse the water that's used on mines?
Fantastic.
Well, obviously, the Department of Water and Services, DWS, must be able to help. But in our case, I'll give you an interesting example. Right now, we deal directly with municipalities, where we're saying we will process the water, we'll treat the water, and we'll try and, once it's reached is a normal human consumption or usage, can we sell it to a municipality? And you end up finding yourself having to trade with a municipality and sell it to a municipality. But dealing with farmers directly, we have to deal directly with the farmer concerned. We don't have a body in between that we've dealt with. No, there are, but I'm saying us directly. I'm talking about us specifically. We talk to the miners themselves. But Department of Water are the ones who are becoming custodians. Yeah. Sure.
No, just to add to what Mike has said, in the most areas, the people who've got the rights to mine there, normally they take a responsibility. They bring the hydrologist, they test the water frequently, and they inform you, and they give you the report of the water. Because as they mine, the water table, even if they are doing the underground mining, the water table is getting affected. And constantly, they need to keep on ensuring inspection, quality, and they need to report to you as a farmer, not municipality, because they are mining in your area. Thank you.
We've got a question from online, and then we'll take another question here in the front. David Cook asked, would the mining see it fit to assist us as a registered organization that has 212 hectares, subdivided between 64 farmers with lease agreements? would the mining see it fit to assist us as a registered organization that has 212 hectares of land, which is subdivided between 64 farmers that have lease agreements?
Well, that question is interesting because you don't know where that place is.
Exactly.
Is there a mine closer?
David, if you are listening online, please just drop it in
Which mining house, which mining commodity are they located so
Yeah.
that we can understand and refer their question to
Yeah,
that specific
we'll try and get
mining
back
house.
to David. Let's quickly take a question from the gentleman in front.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and to the panelists. I think the question I wanted to ask, okay, my name is Jeremiah Matebula from Grand South Africa. The question I wanted to ask was about the rehabilitation after mining. So that question has been answered. And I would like to appreciate the initiative that the mining has took an undertaking to collaborate and work and partner with the farming community, because we all need to coexist. We need the coal to power our energy, and we need agriculture for our food. We need to keep South Africa food secure. But it's important that this initiative is being taken by the leaders in the mining sector, also in the agricultural sector, because working in silos is what creates problems. But coming together and communicate the issues and looking at what opportunities that will be benefiting both, it's helping a lot. And a session like this take away the fear that the mining is here to destroy our agricultural land, which is our grazing, which is our arable land, and our a lot of what we're gonna do there. Because once there's a mine coming in, there was always this resistance to these guys. They cannot come here because when they come here, the farm is gone. But it looks like this initiative, they're gonna benefit the country at large. And thank you so much. Let's keep up those initiatives working. And in Mpumalanga, we had a lot of issues. We even discussed these matters. Mpumalanga, you go to MLO, Carolina, those areas, big mining areas, there's a big outcry. But with this initiative, I would like to have maybe somewhere in MLO, Mike, just to get this out so that people can be at ease and welcome the mining sector, because the issue of water, we all need water. If the water is purified, that will be excellent. So I'm not giving a question, but I'm appreciating the initiative because it will assist all of us. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir.
We've got, of course, the MEC for Northwest Agriculture in the audience with us. We'll ask him to quickly later just give his closing remarks, but we've got another question from the gentleman here in front. Let's get your question.
Hi, my name is Tino, and I'm trying to kind of understand, the rate at which, this is taking place, because mining in itself is quite an aggressive sport, to put it, and, how quickly stuff moves in mining, and unfortunately the inefficiencies in mining, right, that, farmers and mining sure might use water, but, mining is quite aggressive in its output. There's quite rigorous targets in terms of the stuff is there, right? All you need to do is take it out. So even in terms of like the road construction, right? My question in summary is, even in road construction, the same roads being used by farming and mining seems to tend to have a greater usage of these resources. That you find that in these towns, these areas, right, that trucks have, destroyed these roads that they might have been built, but the rate at which, the mining industry consumes, the resources is much greater than that at which farming can make use of it. So historically, you already have an issue, and then now we're addressing it. But at what rate is it being addressed to actually catch up with, what has historically been there, and continuously now that, the rate at which mining uses resources, right, is far greater than that which, farming can be compared. So that's just my question to the audience.
I think your question is good in that not every miner will do the right thing. You'll still come across miners who would mine and not rehabilitate and disappear. And that is why the terrible experience you're talking about, that some of the communities in Mpumalanga are starting to be worried that we don't want mining here because of the experience they've had. Some of the miners may not be the same. In our case, I'm giving you an example where I'm saying, as you mine, you rehabilitate. It's concurrent. You don't wait for 20 years that after 20 years I'll come back once I've finished mining, and then and I agree with you, it's aggressive to mine. Mining is aggressive by its very nature because some of the trenches, some of the areas you dig, especially with open cast, you can see. With underground, you may see it, but people just go underground, you may not see it. The second point you're making is the issue of roads. I gave an example of Seriti Green, where we're building wind turbines in the MLO area to share those roads. But you are right that trucking becomes problematic when you keep on using the road, and the community is using the road, and the farmer is using the road. Who uses the road most? And then the aggressive nature, as you mentioned it, it's because of the one who's using it most. That is why we must be responsible miners in terms of rehabilitation. I must tell you the whole story, and I am emphasizing concurrent rehabilitation. As you mine, you rehabilitate. As you mine, it helps. I know it's expensive, it's a tall order, but reality, for those who mine and say, I'll come back in 10 years' time, I'm telling you, in 3 or 4 years, for the eye, it's just not looking good. Especially in any province you go to, you'll see heaps and heaps of ground simply because there's no rehabilitation happening. And then comes the issue of water. The issue of water is critical, that we need to collaborate and understand the quality of water. As I mine underground and tamper with the water table, we must make sure the hydrologists are helping us to exactly assess the status of the water. Is the water still healthy? Can the animals can it be used for the animals? Can it be used for human consumption? What do we do as the mining houses? That is why I'm saying in the Standerton area, we're going to build a water treatment plant. Why? Because we see the pressure and the aggressive nature of the water that we use and tamper with.
Yeah, just to add there, you know, it's just a pity the other critical stakeholder is not here, the DMR. The people who are issuing these licenses. If you can go to the reality, hence I said that we are highly exposed into those challenges. The big giants in the mining industry, they are trying their best to do what is right. The challenge that we are facing are the new licenses that are issued to these small mining people. Because they come there, they just bulldoze, and after that they leave, and nobody held them accountable. And within the rules of the game from the DMR, all the rules are there. If you are going to mine, what you need to do and what you have to do after. But those things are not applied. The people who are failing the community and the farming in the mining space is the DMR. Because they are not biting enough.
Thank you for that, Ntati David. We've got another question here in front. You can go first.
Hi everyone, my name is Leona Mthombeni, and my question is largely directed to the mining gentleman, Mr. Mike. I wanted to know, what are the plans to ensure that towns don't become ghost towns? Because I know that the plan is to rehabilitate the soils so that the farms can still operate. But a lot of the times, even if the farms can still function, the skills and the resources that were brought to that town by the mining sector, all of those people tend to immigrate and leave after that. So a lot of finances and schools or whatever were built around that. But there's not a lot of high income earning individuals who can stay there and sustain that. So what's the plan to maybe introduce, once the mine is about to leave, maybe new factories or some form of production that is associated with agriculture to ensure that there's still some form of production to uphold the economies within those areas?
That's a good question. Are you related? So, let me share with you an interesting, it comes back to our education. Our education as a country, we have closed this sector called agriculture. To some extent, a lot of people don't see agriculture being a future for themselves. They see a vegetable coming from Woolworths and ShopRite Checkers. it's very difficult for you to sell an idea to a 15-year-old that would you like to be a farmer? They don't see it as, it's not sexy. So therefore, people who live in a community, automatically when they see a mine, they would love to do something to supply to the mine. They'd love to do something that will supply to the mine and get cash immediately and be an entrepreneur. But if you say to that person, would you be keen to be a cattle farmer, would you be keen to be a sheep farmer, or would you be a crop farmer? It's very difficult. So we need to break that mindset that agriculture as well has a great future and you've got a future to do something in that. The second one is our economy. We farm quite a number of things. I don't think we would have the appetite to have lots of abattoirs around us, to have packaging farms that are purely commercial and we package things, fruits, vegetables and the like, and we start selling or exporting. Those are done by big commercial farming people. But again, it's locked into the view that says there are specific types of people who go into farming, not me. If I were to ask you, would you be keen to be a farmer and wake up at 2 a.m. and do something like that? Quite a number of people need to learn to break that mindset. And I understand we may find ourselves living a lot of ghost towns because we don't exploit this opportunity.
Maybe also just to add, and I think exactly that we need to see the infrastructure that's put in there as opportunity, right? Localized processing, localized enterprise development. And like Mike is saying, we always focus on, do you want to plant hundreds and hundreds of hectares of maize or have 1,000 cattle? But there's so many other commodities that are done on smaller extents of land that move you down the processing value chain and can be done either in the infrastructure that's left behind, but also in smaller infrastructure that begins to support the community. The other thing I wanted to say was that if, like we're saying, we're looking at concurrent rehabilitation, you begin to think of your agricultural plan parallel to whatever is already happening. You don't wait for post-mine life to start with something. So that's why we look at what is possible in those areas and build around that. And believe me, agriculture can attract large-scale professionals into a space if we understand all of the other aspects that are peripheral to only what we consider to be the primary production side.
Duncan, a quick one. I just want to add from a community perspective. I think there's something we need to talk about here and try to break very intentionally. And it's this idea of us against them. When we organize ourselves as communities and we actually sit down together with the mines, they actually realize we are part of them. The rehabilitation that Prof is talking about is in fact, should be part and parcel of the discussion. We, at the time when the mines were getting water from Mahali's water all the way to our area, we actually chaired quite a number of boards that incorporated all the key players that the authorities and everybody else, because it is important for us to ensure that rehabilitation happens, that water gets to the Barua Khumo, what is Barua Khumo in English? Cattle farmers, and so on and so forth. So it is important that all those things, we take the initiative as communities and actually get the mines to sit down together with us. There's a social labor plan that they put together. As communities, we need to influence those social labor plans. Ultimately, they're going to be signed by the community themselves. So it is important to sit and have conversations. Thank you.
Fantastic. Let's hear from the gentleman in front, and then we've got another question from the floor.
My name is Mlibo Kotoi. I just picked up that there were roads that were being built and there is wind turbines that are being built. But what made me have this question is that the smaller miners that come in and do not rehabilitate are the bigger problem, and the Ogwood miners. Then between the DMRE, who issues those licenses, can then the private organizations maybe communicate with them, or maybe from the DMRE side, build a framework, co-opt a working group, because oftentimes, is it roads that we really need maybe in those areas? The electricity part, yes, maybe I can agree with that, but there's many initiatives that are needed in very diverse communities and depending on what mine it is. So maybe just a comment that maybe there should be a framework so that we have impactful initiatives of giving back. Sometimes it might not be roads, and the rail infrastructure is lacking in our country. That might be a positive impact. So where do we deploy these resources where they're going to be impactful for these communities? And we assist the government as well in doing that. And organized agriculture and private companies do not pull their own way, because if we spread thin, then our center won't hold, and we're going to continue facing these issues. Thank you.
You can ask your question.
Duncan, thank you. Bankies from Grain SA. My question to Prof from that side. How would you measure impact then of your investment? Because investment at this stage is highly commendable. Do you see a monitoring and evaluation side? Constantly monitoring, evaluate your impact at the end of the year to see what your corporate social investment is worth to the community, just in short. Thank you, Prof.
So it is imperative to understand, when you talk about investment, you're talking about social investment into communities.
Quite so.
Yeah, there's a huge drive from the Minerals Council point of view to drive. There are 3 pathways or 4 pathways. Let me start with the first one, where you say there's corporate social investment, which is purely voluntary. Mining houses, companies will say, we want to invest, we'll look at community projects and assist and uplift them. The second one, it's social and labor plans. The social and labor plan commitment, it's legislated, it's part of your mining right that you must do this. But then there are people like us where we've given shareholding to communities, and they take those dividends and they upgrade whatever they want to upgrade in the community, so that's part of the investment. So that is critical for us as mining houses, that as we grow and progress, the community next door sees you expanding, they see more economic activity, they cannot be left behind. So we need to be doing something to improve the lives of those who are around us. But again, lastly, let's not underestimate the power of ESG. ESG is imperative, ESG cannot be ignored. In the past, it used to be a softy thing, just write a piece of paper, pass it on, and you sign, and then that's important. These days, you get measured, you get followed. And by the way, it's no more the DMR, it's the DMPR. The DMPR will visit you and say, how far are you with your social and labor plan? But beyond that, it is your responsibility to say, how do I upgrade the community and take them to the next level? Thanks.
Thank you, Prof.
Sure.
Yeah, and maybe just to add, I think on the ESG side as well, and I think what many of the mining entities also, there is a framework that you have to report on in terms of those impact indicators. So the social impact is definitely measured quite regularly to see where you are going in the work you are doing.
Thanks, Leona. We've heard back from David, Mike. So David is the farmer who is a registered organization that has 212 hectares of land subdivided between 64 farmers with lease agreements. He is based in the Northern Cape, Kimberley specifically, and he says that they're always seeking for better opportunities better opportunities, or ways rather, that they can be supported by stakeholders and potential partners. Yeah, that was his question. Kimberley,
so the area that you're talking about would be the Northern Cape, which is manganese and diamonds. And most of the manganese miners are big. I mean, there are big players in the manganese space. Therefore, it's exposing them to those manganese players to say, is there anyone in that area who can assist? That's what I was talking about.
Fully agree, and I think what we will also do is just take his details. We are working with some of the mines in the Northern Cape, so we'll see if we can connect him if he's falling within those radius.
Fantastic. And Dr. David, I want to hear from you. What support do farmers need to work closely with the mining sector? What support do farmers need?
Well, within that space, they can be few, but the critical one is water resources support. And when we talk about water resources support, the availability of water and the quality inspection within the water, and as they get the water, there are water from the stream, the river streams. they need just to ensure that the water that they are getting, it's a quality water. And if are not quality water, what can be done in order to make sure that the water that are there are the right water? And on the mining side, they need to ensure that if there are spillages, there must be mechanisms to control those spillages. Because as the rain comes, they move to the water and they pollute the water. Number two, the support that they are getting. It's good that the mines, they are bringing the support. But on the other side, are the people managing and using that support to their best advantage in order to grow? Because we can get support, but to find out the support that is coming, it's not used profitable. Because at the end of the day, when the mine leaves, the mine must leave legacy. We need to show legacy that we have been, these are the beneficiaries from the mine support. Number three, some of the mines that are operating in our areas, there are market opportunities that they can be created within the mine space. There are big giants that are consuming vegetables from the mine employees. They are consuming red meat. Those are the opportunities for the farmers within the space. And the mines can also be a part of the stakeholder relations that can support the community to link and to channel them with the big retailers. But they need to make sure that they are producing the product of the right spec and how they can increase their volumes so that they cannot just supply in summer. For an example, on the vegetable side, comes the winter, then they can't supply. There must be mechanisms that they can make sure either they build tunnels where they can make sure that they are producing constantly.
Thank you, Ntate David. In Ntate Jaberi, Mr. David talks about leaving a legacy. I'm wondering what future do you imagine for rural economies, rather, that combine both mining and farming?
Yeah, I think we as communities, we learned that we need to be very intentional. We need to spend time thinking through each and every sector. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We're looking at mining as one of our key pillars. We're saying, what are the things that would remain post the mines here? And we started with mining beneficiation. We're looking at tourism, and we're saying we have all these hotels around this area. What are the things that we want to remain with that we know will benefit our people? And we are looking at a chef academy right now. And that is education that will continue to yield necessary skills. We did a skills audit, basically, of the hotels in our area. You'll find that the majority of the people come out of the region. But if we start with this training, we're going to reverse that statistics. And you go into agriculture, you do the same thing. The rehabilitation aspect that Prof was talking about. We're looking at an open cast that will produce one of the biggest dams in the area, and that will really be a game changer in terms of our agriculture, and we are working with the mines in that area. So we need to think ahead and be very intentional. I think that's what we are talking about. I mean, one of the challenges that we put before the mines, because they're doing the social labor plan cycle number 4, and we were talking to them about, imagine, when you talk about legacy, if we have an agri school that comes from the Bahasa area. That will probably be the first post-apartheid era, and it is done in a rural community. That is legacy that we want to see.
Indeed. I'd like to hear from MEC Madota. He's in the audience. Quickly, briefly, sir, you have experience in both of these worlds, mining and agriculture. What are your thoughts listening to the experts on stage here today?
When I found Professor Teke, I told him that I can leave because he's here. And I said, because you are going to talk about both, at least you are highly involved. Let me first say, I appreciate the introduction of the topic, but I think that we must change the approach. I have an interest on AGDA's experience in Venetia, because we're a mining province, Northwest, ourselves in Limpopo. Now here's an issue. He says stake in a mine hostel which I stayed on when I was a mine worker here in Carltonville. We consume grade 3 steak. Grade 3. That's what we are served with. Grade 3 steak, the mine hostel. Now, when you talk about mining and agriculture, you must first talk about mining and agriculture for mining communities. You must be clear first. Before you mobilize everyone else who's outside a mining instance to come only for the opportunity and leave, because that person is not different from the mine itself. That's the first principle. The second one is that if you were to, as you go back, just closer here in Val Reefs, Orkney, Umzimuhle, there's 1,200 head of cattle. Who owns it? It's a group of 40 current and ex-mine workers. 40. They own 1,200. They have no access to grazing land that the mine has, which is not contaminated, because contamination is not everywhere. That's the first one. The second one is that when you look to two elements of mining, labor sending and hosting communities. Now, because I'm a product of both, labor sending. If you know, before 1994, anyone who was recruited through Teke Limited for a mine, back home in the labor sending, they have enough land. You know why? Previously, your TVBC states had agreements with mines. We will send you labor. You contribute back to us, then we'll contribute. Now, those areas that TVBC states, each mine worker who was recruited formally through them has enough land at home. And this topic does not talk about that component. Yeah, abundance of land in the former homelands that used to be aligned to mines, which the mining charter still talks about as a labor sending area. That component is not spoken about. The last one is, now, mining, like Professor Mike, I'm used to say Bra Mike, would remember that mining contribution in the economy is critical of each local. Now, here's an issue. The legislation is properly clear since 2002. And then back then, it never existed. It's proper. The problem is not DMRE. The problem is, how do we as agriculture fraternity engage the Mineral Council, their organized business formation, the Mineral Council, to have a biasness on agricultural development, on its conceptualization of individual social and labor plans. Now, the last one from there is that once you do that, in each mine, they would have an understanding of what they must do. Now, they consult by law a local municipality. That's where it's approved. social and labor plan. Ironically, the local municipality would not be biased to farming. The local municipality would be putting schools and clinics and roads. The mine will sign because consultation was done with the local municipality. Then money follows a signed social and labor plan, which is an outcome of a consultation. That component too we must keep. That local municipalities, when consulted, must be biased to food production in their area, so that mines inherently will come up with comments for majority of communities, with priority being farming. Let me end there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to maybe just get some thoughts from the panelists on stage. Leona, you would maybe respond to that?
Thanks, MEC. And I think, yeah, you're touching on some very, very critical points. Like you're saying, you know both of the sectors well, so that enables you to also then be able to speak on both. I think the work we're doing in Venetia, most definitely, we will want to touch base on that. Because the idea there is to have that high-level strategy that then informs all the way to localized level, working with also local municipalities and trying to make sure that agriculture does have a point of priority in the plans themselves. But the other part I want to touch on is this engagement with the Minerals Council. It's definitely something at agri level now that we are doing and trying to make sure that we work together in the co-development, co-creation of a high-level strategic policy. And I think we have great opportunity this year with the B20, with the G20, et cetera, happening in our country to begin to elevate this conversation of mining and agriculture. I won't go to all the other points, but definitely in agreement with a lot of what the MEC is saying.
Yeah, thanks, MEC. You have said it a lot. But yeah, indeed, I will touch the issue of training. You have mentioned that there is farmers within the Northwest area that are farming 1,200 cattle. But the worrying factor is, are we doing enough? Does those people know exactly that they are sitting in a gold with those animals? That's number one. Number two, the commodity, which is a red meat space, or either the same farmers, do they belong to an organized structure? It boils back to them. Because immediately they belong to an organized structure. There is a lot of sessions that are taking place about market, about training, about grading of your animals. And once you know that, those people the chances are very high that they can sell their animals direct, or either they can be collected directly from them for slaughter, where they can get the beneficiation from carcass rather than to sell an animal for the bereavement. Other problems are sitting with our people. Sitting in the silo, you say that you are farming. It won't change your farming, and you won't go and you won't grow in agriculture. You need to belong to an organized agriculture as a person who wants to farm. That one I'm taking you as an MEC, that must go to all provinces. That, more especially the emerging people, they need to understand that they are not farming for their home. They are farming for the nation. For their product to be marketed, for their product to get access, they need to belong to organized agriculture. I'm sticking on that. I'm not compromising. Thank you.
MEC, that's interesting points you raised, and you're right. Number one, I think for us as the Minerals Council, yes, I would welcome anybody who comes and talk to us. AGDA, anybody who wants to collaborate. The Minerals Council is a powerful body with lots of mining companies. I mean, we represent more than 95% of the production capacity in this country. We're big. So I think that's important. The second important thing that in mining, people apply for a mining right, a prospecting right, then it becomes a mining right, they mine. Agriculture may be different in most cases. the land that you occupy, you maybe have inherited it from your family. And you don't want to give away. If somebody came to you and say, can I buy your land? It's land that belongs to your forefathers. So we need to be careful of those sensitivities. Some people want to hang on to that land, but the collaboration between, in the Brits area, there's a beautiful collaboration between a farmer there and the platinum industry, vegetable farmer. If you visit that farmer, you notice that the collaboration between these two is amazing. The last one is the law. Most of the people have a tendency of saying, I'll resort to the law if there are problems, instead of talking to each other as industries. You end up spending time in courts and paying lots of money to fight on something that you could have resolved in collaboration.
I think everything has been said, really. MEC, you raised some very interesting points. I think there's always more that we can do when it comes to collaboration. I mean, one of the things that we really could do better in our area is the collaboration between ourselves, the municipality, the local minds, as well as bringing academics around the table as well, so that they have input into this. But I agree 100%. Biasness should be given towards agriculture, because if we are looking beyond, we need to use mining as a catalyst, so that as time goes on, we really produce serious farmers for the future. But we need to make, and this is the language we use, we need to make farming again to look sexy for the young people. They need to aspire to go into it. And really that's the collaboration we need in order to drive that. Let's target the youth. The unemployment rate is too huge. We cannot just let them be. And so that's really what we are looking forward to.
Leona, wrap this up for us. Looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest barriers to rural development in mining towns? But also, what gives you hope that we can overcome it?
So I think for me, not just in mining towns, but across all of the agricultural and rural areas that we work in, the biggest barrier remains the continued approaches that are in silos. I think collaboration and partnering, government, private sector, is what is going to help us drive development and drive it for greater impact. And I really believe that a lot of people are seeing the benefit of working with each other, and there's a lot of success stories to be told. So let's hear those and let's begin to replicate where we can. And the rest, I think, is really for us to work together. Mining and agriculture, I see great opportunity for the future. I think we need to work on some innovative models together and begin to bring all of that into one bigger plan that we can drive as a country.
Fantastic. That brings us to the end of our session. We were talking mining and agriculture and how these two worlds can coexist. Thank you so much to our panelists for joining us and for having this open and honest conversation, also to our audience members that posed questions and also comments. Hopefully these conversations or what came out here today can be taken forward, and we can find a way to work together and address some of the challenges that exist. Once again, thank you so much for your time on this conversation. Let's give our panelists a round of applause.